Hey everyone, welcome to this lesson about the past tense negative sentences. This presentation has 3 parts. Part 1 is sentences with be. In English, the verb be is often the main verb of the sentence. In this case, you need to show if it is present tense or past tense. Here's some examples. Slavery is a system of forced labor. It is horrible. In the United States in the 1700s, slavery was legal. So, in all of these sentences, you can see there's one verb, and that is some form of the verb be. These 2 are present tense, and this one is past tense. The verb be can also be a helping verb. So in these cases, you still need to show if it is present tense or past tense. Plantations in the South were using slaves instead of paid workers. Slaves were beaten and abused. When we look at these sentences, we can see that there are 2 verbs working together here. This is a verb phrase, and were is the helping verb. Were is the helping verb here. So in both of these cases, the sentence is in the past, and the past tense you can see is on the helping verb. It's easy to make a negative sentence with the verb be, just to add not after the verb. And this rule is the same in present tense and past tense. So I can say, oh, this is kind of a crazy sentence. The slaves were treated like human beings. Is that true? No way, that's not true. The truth is the slaves were not treated like human beings. Take a look at the next one. The slaves were happy with their life. What do you think? I don't think so. I think the slaves were not happy with their life. And finally, this is a good system for any country. No way. This is not a good system for any country. So this is how you make a negative if you have were or was or is or are, any form of the verb be. So in speaking and informal writing, it's common to make contractions with be plus not. And this can happen in the present tense and the past tense. So for the present tense, am not has no contraction, but are not turns to aren't, is not turns to isn't. The past tense we have was not turns to wasn't, were not for a plural sentence changes to weren't. So there's 4 possible contractions: aren't, isn't, wasn't, and weren't. Let's do a little practice with this. I want you to take a piece of paper, write the numbers 1 through 4, and write your answers. Pause the video and try to complete these sentences. In the blank space, you should put was, wasn't, were, or weren't. Ready to check your answers? Number 1, Harriet Tubman wasn't born with the name of Harriet. She changed her name when she married her husband. Number 2 says, John Tubman, this should be, wasn't a slave. He was a free man. John Tubman wasn't a slave. Number 3, Harriet and John. And pay attention that you've got 2 subjects here. Harriet and John were living in Maryland when Harriet decided to run away. Number 4, it was a decision which changed her life. So I hope you did pretty well there. If you got some of those questions wrong, that just means this is something you should practice. Let's move on to part 2, sentences with all other verbs. These are verbs that are not be. So if a sentence is using any other verb besides be, then we have to make the negative forms with a helping verb. Most of the time, the helping verb is do. So I can say, Harriet decided to run away very suddenly. She wasn't prepared for her journey. That is a negative with be. But for these sentences, have and no, I make the negative in a different way. She didn't have any food. She didn't have warm clothes. And she didn't know the way. So these are the negatives with all the other verbs. In the present tense, there are two forms of the helping verb, do and does. In the past tense, there is only one form for all the subjects, which is did. So do not turns to don't, does not turns to doesn't, and did not also has a contraction, that is didn't. So in the past tense, we see this verb didn't a lot. When there are two verbs in the verb phrase, we always show the tense, which is present or past, on the first verb. The verb tense goes on the first verb. One common mistake is to show the past tense on both verbs, so please be careful. The verb after did always goes in the base form. Look at this sentence. This is a sentence with a little mistake. Can you see the mistake? Harriet didn't talk to her husband about her plans. There's the mistake. It should be Harriet didn't talk. So this looks like it's in the present tense, but you have to look at the whole phrase together. The past tense is here. That makes the whole phrase in the past. Harriet didn't talk to her husband. She didn't want him to get in trouble. This sentence is correct because you have just the past tense on did. Don't put any ed here. You don't need it. Here's one more example. Escaping slaves didn't travel during the daytime. What do you think? Is this okay? I hope you said no. Escaping slaves didn't travel during the daytime. They always traveled at night. All right, let's do just a little practice. Can you complete these past tense sentences? Use the base form plus ed, or didn't plus the base form if it's negative. Pause the video and write your 3 answers. Ready to check? When Harriet first ran away, her owner didn't realize that she was gone. When he found out that she was gone, he followed her on his horse. When the owner caught Harriet on the bridge, she wanted to jump. 2 more. Pause the video to write these answers. Ready? When the owner saw that she was thinking about jumping, he talked to her in a calm way. And finally, it means like talking to her. It didn't work. Harriet jumped anyway. So I hope that helps you understand a little bit about the verb didn't. Didn't is a very common way to make the past, but it's not the only way. If you have the verb be, then you don't use didn't. Okay, the last part of this presentation is sentences with can. The past of can is could, so in the present tense we see can not, or we see the contraction can't. In the past tense we see could not, or the contraction couldn't. Sentences with can follow the same rule as sentences with do. To put them in the past, change the helping verb to past and leave the main verb in the base form. These are all examples of good sentences with the past of can. So Harriet ran, but she couldn't run fast enough to get away from the men on horses. The horses were faster than her. There we see could turns into couldn't. She couldn't cross the river because the men and dogs were blocking the bridge. There we see it again. She couldn't escape in any other way, so she jumped. And when she jumped, her master couldn't believe it. He couldn't believe it. So, there we go. I would like you to practice all the things we've been studying. Please pause the video, read this paragraph, and on a piece of paper, write the missing past tense verbs for this short story. Ready to check your answers? Here we go. I like to study about history, but I didn't like to hear the story about slavery in class yesterday. All of the information and the pictures were so sad. The African people who were brought to America didn't have any choice. The slave traders didn't respect their basic human rights. If I lived at that time, I couldn't accept slavery. I would fight against it. So we've learned a lot in this lesson. Let's do a quick review before we finish. In this lesson, we learned 3 ways to make negative sentences in the past. If the verb is be, then just add not after the verb. If the verb is anything else that's not the verb be, add the helping verb did plus not plus the verb in the base form. And number 3, if you want to talk about ability in the past of can is could. So use could plus the verb in the base form. And that's the end of this presentation. I hope that was helpful, and I will see you in class.